If no one could ever see what you bought, would you still buy it? That one question may tell you more about your financial future than your bank account. Hey, lady bosses, are you working even after putting the kids to bed but still not getting results?
Are you tired of spending money on ads that aren't getting engagement?
Do you feel burdened that you aren't fulfilling your purpose in life because you are so consumed with work?
I'm your host, Brooke Boltz. I'm an attorney and founder of Boltz Legal. I started my business and in 1 year was bringing in 7 figures and am now bringing in multi-7 figures.
And I'm your co-host, Rachel Boltz, owner of Boltz Media. I've helped many businesses build their online presence and increase their revenue through digital marketing.
Want to hear how we did it?
We are here to help you achieve your goals personally, professionally, and spiritually.
So kick off your high heels, sit back, and let's ignite that passion.
We're Miss Biz, where we're putting the miss in biz.
Let's get biz done. Have you ever bought something not because you actually wanted it, but because you wanted someone else to see you with it?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest, I think we all have. And I think we've probably done it more often than we want to admit. Maybe it was a luxury car or the designer purse or the expensive watch. Or maybe it wasn't something you bought, it was the business you built because you wanted people to say, wow, or you wanted to prove to that naysayer who said you couldn't do it that you were a success. So today we're talking about lessons I learned from hearing the author Morgan Housel speak at a conference. He's the author of the book, The Psychology of Money. He says that the highest form of wealth is waking up every morning and being able to do what you want. But I'd actually argue that there's something even deeper hidden inside that message, which is that the most valuable financial asset you can ever own is not needing to impress anyone. And 2 sailors proved that lesson in Morgan Housel's speech.
So in 1968, the Sunday Times announced the world's first solo nonstop sailing race around the globe. The prize was about $900,000 in today's money. One man entered named Donald Crowhurst, but there was just one problem. He wasn't actually qualified. He had been kicked out of both the Air Force and the Army. He had businesses that had failed. He was nearly bankrupt, and his sailing experience was nowhere near what other competitors had. But he desperately wanted one thing, and that was respect. He wanted people to finally think he was successful. And 3 months into the race, disaster struck. His boat began leaking, the navigation equipment failed, and he knew that he couldn't finish. So he had 2 choices, either go home or pretend. So guess which option he chose?
Well, I've heard the speech, so
Okay.
He pretended.
He pretended. So instead of continuing around the world, he sailed into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and literally drifted in circles for 6 months. Every few weeks, he radioed home fake coordinates, fake progress, fake victories. England believed he was becoming a national hero. Newspapers followed every update. People planned parades. And here's what's fascinating. The lie became even more expensive than the truth. Eventually, the other competitors dropped out. Suddenly, Donald realized if he returned, he would actually win, and the world would inspect his logbooks. The fraud would be exposed. The embarrassment would be unbearable. Days later, his empty boat was found. No damage, no struggle, only a journal showing increasing panic. Donald disappeared into the sea. One of the greatest financial tragedies in history wasn't caused by bankruptcy. It was caused by the fear of humiliation.
So this story is just an example of someone who is extremely concerned with the opinions of others and how they perceive him. And who knows his backstory and why he was so concerned with that, but he could not come back and be a failure, and instead he chose to essentially seemingly commit suicide. They never found his body, and his boat was found empty in the middle of the sea. So it seems as though he would rather die than face the humiliation of having lost, and even more so having lied about his progress.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people like that in this world who, you know, would rather go to extreme measures than take accountability for their actions.
Right.
But, you know, so many times we're told growing up, like, you know, your reputation is everything, your word is your bond. So all of those are huge factors to consider. And I think that's why other people's opinions matter so much.
Well, and I think those are true statements. I think it is true that your reputation is very important, but I think there's a distinction, because having a reputation centered around your values and your principles and who you are is what I think is important. But having the best car or the best clothing or looking the best, those are the things I think that we get concerned with that don't matter as much.
Well, all of those lead into your reputation, or maybe the image that you're trying to portray, basically. You know, like if you're, and we used this example a couple weeks ago, like if you are a successful attorney, you're not going to see a successful attorney driving around in a bent up Buick that's been through accidents, right? Because that's going to immediately change people's perception of you.
Right. No, it's very true that people do judge you based on how you look immediately. 100% they do that. But to what extent do we allow that to control us?
Finding guests for a podcast can be difficult sometimes, so Brooke and I wanted to let you guys know that we are available to appear on your podcast.
We also enjoy speaking at events, so if you have an event coming up, these jingles can go on the road.
Simply go to missbiz.com/contact, and in the subject line, write podcast guest or event speaker, and we'll reach out to you to
That's the question. Like how and I struggle with this, because I've said before, if I could just walk around in sweatpants all the time, I would, but I cannot. I am an attorney. I cannot. If I showed up at networking business meetings wearing sweatpants, I would be immediately judged and I would be immediately written off. Like I cannot do that. So I have to look the part to some extent, but I also have to weigh, okay, how can I be presentable, but also not be controlled by what other people are thinking of me all the time?
Yeah.
It's a fine line.
It's difficult. I know a lot of women that won't leave the house without their hair and makeup done, you know, and that's something that I'm very particular about too, because people judge you based upon your appearance. I don't want to appear with a messy bun or like I just rolled out of bed, because then people are going to start thinking that, well, that must be the way that she conducts her business if she can't even comb her hair in the morning. So,
and some people might, but other people could, like, because I have thought those thoughts too, but it's like, well, for me, if they think that, then too bad. Like, they're just gonna think that, like, because I don't want to have, you know, my hair and makeup done all the time. I don't want to live that life. So if they're going to judge me because I don't, then let them judge me. But when I'm in a professional setting, I will look professional. But if I'm shopping at the grocery store, or I'm at the gym, or I'm hanging out with my kids at the park, I'm not going to look great. And if people don't like it, well, that's their problem, you know? So it's kind of a give and take.
For me, it never fails. Whenever I go out of the house and my hair and makeup are a mess, I either get pulled over by a cop or I run into somebody that I haven't seen in years and I'm looking a mess. So
for sure.
It's always my luck.
Yeah, no, I ran into, and I think I told you about this, I was at the gym and I looked horrible and ran into someone who refers us business regularly.
Yeah.
Like refers us regularly business, and I was like, oh man, because that was a professional person,
Right.
like a person that I know from a professional setting, so I did not want to look like I did. But I mean, he kept referring us business. Yeah. He didn't hold it against me. He understood that we were at the gym and that's like a place that it's acceptable to not always look your best. So it really didn't cause me any consequence, also because he knew me in other contexts and wasn't just judging me based on that one encounter. So I don't know. This is everybody has to find their balance and what they're comfortable with. But the second sailor in this race is the complete opposite of Donald. And so this is the contrast that's really important. So the second sailor was Bernard Moitessier. I don't know. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But Bernard was arguably the best sailor in the race. And after 9 months, he was about to win. Everyone back home was preparing for their celebration. The media was waiting. Sponsors were waiting. And as he approached the finish line, he did something that nobody expected. He fired a flare, not asking for help, but simply to pass a handwritten message to another ship. And his message read, "I'm continuing without stopping towards the Pacific because I'm happy at sea." So he had the opportunity to win, to get all that prize money, to become famous, but he was eaten up by the idea that he was performing for the masses or performing for the media. And so he chose not to win and kept sailing another 3 months and eventually landed in Tahiti and chose peace and happiness over the prestige of winning that race. And he didn't want to be perceived as just being a puppet to what the media or the masses expected. And so he was true to what he wanted, which was to have peace. He accomplished, in his own mind, he accomplished the race because he knew he could see the finish line. Mm-hmm. So he knew he had done what he set out to do. He was doing it for himself, not for others. And that's why he felt that peace, that he had accomplished it, and then went on to his next challenge or his next destination.
That's pretty crazy. I can't imagine putting forth that much effort, energy. I mean, unless he must have just been trying to prove it to himself that he could do it.
Right.
And then once he proved it to himself, that was all the satisfaction that he needed, and he didn't need the prize money or the name recognition or anything like that because he was already so satisfied within himself.
Yeah, but it's admirable because I would not do that.
No.
I would not.
I'm competitive as heck, man. I'd be like, I won.
Yeah. I mean, 9 months at sea, the first person to ever do this around the world sailing trip, and for him to accomplish it and then not receive the fruit of his reward, like I would never just be like, never mind. And
he must have been an introvert.
Way bad. I don't know what he was, but it's just a lesson to look at those very different personalities of those two sailors who were in the same race. One was doing it purely for the recognition of others, and the other was doing it completely not for the recognition of others. And so most of us probably fall somewhere in between, but I really appreciated this story of these two sailors because it allows us to take a look at ourselves and figure out where do we lie on that spectrum.
Right. So the hidden lesson most people miss is that that's not actually the lesson. The lesson is about who gets to define success. Donald lived by external scoreboards, and Bernard lived by an internal one, like you were saying. And that difference changes everything. Behavioral economists have also discovered something called positional spending. Imagine your neighbor buys a larger television. Suddenly, your perfectly good television feels smaller. Nothing changed except your comparison. And researchers have found that our brains don't naturally measure value in absolute terms. We measure it relative to the people around us. That's why salaries that once felt amazing suddenly feel average. That's why social media is financially dangerous. You're comparing your behind the scenes life to thousands of carefully edited highlight reels. And the comparison never ends because someone will always have more.
Yeah. There were some stories that were told at the conference about people whose someone's neighbor won the lottery. And so they're buying all these things because they won the lottery. But the neighbor next door who had not won the lottery started also buying the same things, but was just buying them on a credit card. But because they're seeing the lottery winner getting all these things, they can't be left behind. So they start also, so one's like going bankrupt because they just can't allow the neighbor to have things and then them not have it.
That's why those yard signs work so well for businesses. Like if, the roof was done, right? Other neighbors are going to see that and think, well, man, I really need to have my roof done too. Or pressure washing. If somebody has their driveway pressure washed, they're going to think, wow, I really need my driveway pressure washed as well. So
right. And it's also interesting how you could be totally content with something and then you find out that your neighbor has something better and now yours is trash. You don't want it anymore. I was talking to someone recently at a big law firm where they were having a turnover problem with attorneys leaving. And so they decided that they would raise their starting salary for brand new attorneys out of law school quite a bit in order to incentivize them to stay, and they wouldn't be able to find anywhere else to go that was going to compete with that salary. But what they didn't do is raise the salaries of all the people who had been there already. And so they attracted all these new people right out of school, but the people who had been there for 3 to 5 years who had been happy with their salaries were no longer happy with those salaries because someone else who didn't work as hard to get there was making the same amount.
With much less experience. I mean, those senior attorneys are the ones that have been holding it down, winning all the cases.
Right. They worked their way up to getting that salary. They didn't just get offered it right out of school. Right. And so those people left because they were upset that someone else was getting paid the same who had earned it. And so So it was interesting because before that happened, those people were probably very happy with their salaries, and then suddenly finding out what someone else makes them unhappy.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you love the Miss Biz podcast?
Because we love you.
Here's 3 things you can do to show your support.
1, write us a review. Apple, Spotify, and Google My Business are the best platforms to write a review.
2, follow us on social media. Our handle is @MissBizPodcast.
3, join our Facebook group, Miss Biz Nation, for exclusive content and behind-the-scenes footage. Also, ask questions related to your business and discuss topics from our episodes. So businesses fall into this trap quite often. It doesn't just happen personally. Businesses do it constantly. A business owner will lease the biggest office because competitors have one. Buy They'll buy luxury furniture clients don't care about. They'll wrap themselves in debt to drive a vehicle that they think successful people should drive. They'll often hire staff too early. We saw that with somebody that we know personally, where they had opened a practice here and started hiring a whole big team and spending all kinds of money in marketing, and essentially went bankrupt and didn't have the money that they needed in order to start their practice the right way, even though they had ran their practice successfully elsewhere. They'll rent too much space. They'll spend thousands on appearances before spending hundreds on systems. We've seen businesses making $1 million a year, yet living paycheck to paycheck. And we've seen businesses making half as much with owners sleeping peacefully every night, because freedom doesn't come from revenue. Freedom comes from margin.
One of the things John Morgan said at the conference is that he was on a board of a bank for a long time. And he said, you cannot judge someone's financial success by the things that they own. He said, he was shocked to find that these people who drove Bentleys and had $10 million houses, because he was on the board, he got to see their financial statements, and they were in debt 6, 7, 8 figures.
Yeah.
And he said, you don't know. Just because you see someone buying expensive things does not mean that they are doing well financially. He said they could be buying it on credit cards, they could be buying it on loans, and he has seen it firsthand that people who appear to have all these things really are in devastating condition financially.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in another episode previously about rappers and famous people, how often they are so far into debt that everyday people like us have more liquidity. We may not have as much assets, but we have more liquidity, and we're not nearly in as big of debt as they are.
Yeah, and that takes away from your peace of mind.
Yeah.
You think about it. You want to go out and buy the biggest, best thing because you want to get this recognition, but that's short-lived, because if you now have to be making payments on that thing you just bought, and you've got to be stressed every month on how you're going to make these payments, is it really worth the recognition that you got because everyone thought you were a big deal for a minute?
Mm-hmm. Right. So here's the part that most people have never heard before. Psychologists distinguish between extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation comes from applause, recognition, awards, status, titles, whereas intrinsic motivation comes from doing something because it aligns with who you are. And here's what's fascinating. Research consistently shows that when people become overly focused on external awards, their internal enjoyment often declines. It's called the over-justification effect. In other words, the more that you chase applause, the less you enjoy the actual work. That's why some entrepreneurs become miserable after finally becoming successful. They've reached the destination only to realize they were climbing someone else's mountain.
Yeah. So Morgan Housel in The Psychology of Money talks about that wealth is what you don't see. Nobody sees the debt that you said no to. Mm-hmm. Nobody sees the impulse purchase of the Louis Vuitton purse that you walked away from, the expensive upgrade that you skipped, the business acquisition that you wisely said no to, the meetings you declined, the client you fired, the free weekend that you could have worked but instead protected with family time. Those invisible decisions create visible freedom later. Real wealth is often invisible Status is almost always visible, but people confuse the two every day.
So before you spend money this week, pause and ask yourself, is this purchase for attention or for my own enjoyment? Neither answer is automatically wrong. Sometimes we all buy nice things, and that's okay. The danger comes when we can't tell the difference anymore, because then other people start controlling our financial decisions.
So Morgan Housel says that money gets used in two very different ways. One is as a tool to create choices, freedom, peace, experiences, time with family. The second is money becomes a scoreboard, a way to measure yourself against everyone else. One path leads to freedom, and the other leads to an endless race you can never actually win.
So this week, make sure that you notate every purchase that you make: coffee, shoes, subscriptions, technology, a vehicle, even business expenses, and ask one simple question: would I still buy this if nobody else ever knew that I owned it? And if the answer is yes, congratulations, you're probably buying freedom. But if the answer is no, maybe you're buying applause. And applause is one of the most expensive things money can purchase, because unlike freedom, you have to keep paying for it.
The richest person in the room usually isn't the one who looks the wealthiest. It's the one who no longer needs anyone else to think they are.
We appreciate you and are honored to be on this journey with you. We can't wait to help you, to encourage you, and show you how to grow personally, professionally, and spiritually.
If you found Miss Biz helpful, please leave a review and share with others.
You can follow us on social media at Miss Biz Podcast.
For legal questions or services, please visit boltslegal.com.
And for digital marketing needs, please visit boltsmedia.com. Let's get biz done.